Well, this week we're going to talk about tax policy. Tax policy came up front and center in Paul Ryan's budget that he presented to the House Budget Committee this week, and it was something that was very much a part of the Bowles-Simpson Commission and the Rivlin-Domenici Task Force. And interestingly enough, all three came to a similar conclusion, which is that you can do a lot for the tax code by broadening the base, which means getting rid of or scaling back a lot of exemptions, credits, deductions, exclusions. That broadens the base, and you can bring in more revenue, actually, and lower rates. The question is, what do you do with the new revenue that you bring in? Diane, do you want to talk a little bit about the options and how Paul Ryan dealt with that?
Well, there's certainly a lot of potential revenue there and deficit reduction that could be had by closing off, reducing or eliminating any of these special tax preferences in the current tax code. All of tax expenditures combined are about $1 trillion a year, and that's about as much as all of discretionary spending. I think what's interesting is that Paul Ryan has begun to recognize the fact that a lot of tax preferences are actually are equivalent to spending programs, just simply on the tax side of the budget in terms of foregone revenue. I think what we've seen Paul Ryan decide to do with that revenue, however, is not apply it to deficit reduction, but he's made a choice to use it for revenue neutral tax reform. In other words, using the revenue gained by broadening the base to lower marginal tax rates. So he's given up a potential big lever for reducing the deficit over the medium term, and that's a choice he's made. He's choosing to keep revenues below the 40-year historical average of around 18% of GDP, 18 to 19% of GDP. And as a result, he's had to cut spending by a lot in order to get the budget deficit down to sustainable levels.
Getting the principle on the table is a good thing, and then you can, like we did with the Rivlin-Domenici group, we made it part of a bipartisan negotiation, and we ended up where we ended up. But I mean, I think getting it on the table is an important start.
And something that can appeal to conservatives. I think Paul Ryan recognizes the fact that conservatives are going to be much more willing to raise revenue through base broadening rather than through increases in marginal tax rates.
Right, it's more efficient economically, would simplify the tax code, and so. But it's also we should be clear. These are like entitlements run through the tax code, and they're like spending entitlements, very popular. It includes the mortgage interest deduction, and includes the exclusion of employer-provided health insurance. Those are the two big ones.
Right.
So they're not all just corporate welfare. Some of them are middle-class entitlements.
Right, and it may not be any easier politically to eliminate or limit these tax entitlements than it is for our other big entitlement programs in the federal budget.
But I think a good way to look at it, really, to get some bipartisan cooperation, is that they really are the same as spending entitlements, just running through the tax code.
Right.